Speaking of teams that stink right now, Villanova loses at home to St. Joseph's. Not great, not a good result. We should note St. Joe's has now looked very good against the two big games on their schedule. They took Kentucky to overtime at Rupp Arena, and now they basically led from start to finish against Villanova. They coast to a 13-point victory in the second half. Got a little dicey early in the second half, and then St. Joe's just immediately created more separation. And like I said, coasted to a victory here. Villanova was the Battle for Atlantis champions a week ago. Everybody was feeling great about him. Everybody was giving Kyle Neptune his flowers for the great portal class and how he rebuilt this roster. And, oh, they're a serious contender. I've heard everybody on After Dark from the Big East world try and tell me that this team belongs right up there with Marquette and right up there with UConn right now, especially when you get to the end of the season. This was Justin Moore and Eric Dixon and nothing else. That's been my fear with this team from the start. We saw last year, Justin Moore and Eric Dixon are not good enough to carry a bad team. Tyler Burton, TJ Bamba, they no-showed this game. They were not there. What did you see from Villanova?
I've seen enough to know that I have completely changed my tune on Kyle Neptune. And not that I even have an opinion on him, because this isn't his fault. These transfers are just not good. And we've seen them enough against good competition to know that for some reason they just stink. Like Tyler Burton cooked St. Joe's when he was at Richmond. And he goes for 4 shot attempts. And I don't want a box score watch, but I do want to be very specific when it comes to these players. TJ Bamba, who averaged 17 a game at Washington State, 1 point, 0 of 5 shooting in 34 minutes. Hakeem Hart, 6 points in 10 minutes. The fact that he only plays 10 minutes is a problem in itself. And then, again, Burton, 5 points. Lance Ware, reportedly, he got a bag when he left Kentucky to go to Villanova. That might be the biggest heist in history because he's just 0 points in 8 minutes. And you cannot rely on Moore and Dixon to do it all. They have nothing. And at some point, it's not Neptune. It's just these guys just can't play well in roles that aren't their own. Like Tyler Burton can only be a number 1 option. He doesn't know what to do when he's a number 3 option. Like Hakeem Hart is supposed to be the versatile role player. Can't even do that. Like, and Bamba, just a shooter. He can't do that. I can't blame Neptune for the fact that these transfers just don't want to show up against the St. Joe's team, who, by the way, don't defend. Like, they're not really a good defensive team. They've had their own problem. Like, Billy Lange has been on the hot seat for the Hawks. They do have a ton of talent. Eric Reynolds is a stud. Cameron Brown, great. Lynn Greer, great. They didn't even have their big man, the 7-foot freshman, Chris Sissendoko. Didn't even have him. And yet Villanova, outside of Dixon, has no size to exploit that. They're a team that, from a talent perspective, can beat anyone. They're not going to be consistent enough. They're not going to run 4 wins in a row. They're going to lose probably to DePaul. They're going to struggle against St. John's for no reason. I'm just naturally out on them because you can't be this inconsistent. But again, it's not the coach. These just have inconsistent players that are supposed to be better than what they have been so far.
Yeah. So I'm going to go metaphor route here with Villanova and how they've been building their roster. And please forgive me. I think this is one of the clunkiest, worst metaphors I've ever tried to unveil on this show. But what I feel like Kyle Neptune's trying to do here is he's trying to go buy like $1 hash brown at McDonald's. Okay. Like that's the end goal here is I need to go get $1.06 to go buy a hash brown. And last year's roster had 3 quarters. It had Cam Whitmore, who was a quarter. It was like a kind of gross quarter. Like he fell to the ground a couple of times, maybe got some like sticky goo that stuck to him, but he was a quarter. Then you had Eric Dixon and you had Justin Moore, who were also quarters. And they were 25 cents short, 31 cents short with tax, right? They needed to just get a little more ammo here. We need to get our funds up. So what do? Cam Whitmore leaves. Neptune says, I'm going to go out and get 3 guys from the portal. The problem is, as much as people praise this portal class, TJ Bamba and Tyler Burton and Hakeem Hart and Lance Ware are not quarters. Those are like nickels or dimes at best. Like if you want to give them credit, Bamba's a dime, Burton's a dime, Hakeem Hart's a dime, and Lance Ware's a nickel. 35 cents in 4 guys instead of 25 cents in 1 guy. doesn't get you to your dollar, even if it puts you incrementally ahead of where you were last year. That's how I feel about Villanova. And because it looks so different and there's more players there, I think people were quick to praise how good this roster is and how good of a job Kyle Neptune did and what the ceiling is. When in reality, these guys are role players, and role players that haven't been very good. Like I'm sorry, Tyler Burton, I know he's been productive. I thought that Richmond team really underachieved last year because he hit a wall and didn't have a higher ceiling beyond what he was. TJ Bamba, good player. I don't think he's a great player on great teams. We've just never seen that. Hakeem Hart, I don't know where the narrative flipped on Hakeem Hart. He's always been an irrelevant role guy at Maryland. And now here he is on Villanova. And I think people gassed him up like he's one of the best shooters in the country when it's just not the case. So even if those guys were good versions of themselves, that leaves you in a spot where you're still looking around in the room and saying, Eric Dixon, Justin Moore, you're our go-to guys. Those guys proved fully incapable of being successful as top two options on a team last year. And I get that Justin Moore was hurt. It's good to see him healthy right now. Justin Moore would be a great number 2. Eric Dixon would be a great number 3. Those guys are not 1 and 2s on a good team. And there's a caliber drop off to this Villanova team that I think everyone needs to begrudgingly accept, because when they get into the Big East play, like there's going to be elite teams they have to play every single week. They're going to lose those games more often than not because they don't have the talent to match up.
And by the way, they're all playing out of position because Justin Moore is basically the point guard. Because Mark Armstrong, 16 minutes, like 2 shot attempts. I mean, basically he's just out there spelling it. And Moore had 3 assists and 4 turnovers. The team had more turnovers than assists. Like that's just not going to work offensively. Tyler Burton is a 3 playing the undersized 4, and he's not rebounding. So if you're not actually creating mismatches as the undersized 4, then you're pretty much the negative. And Eric Dixon has to play the 5 because Lance Ware's not good, and Nana Njoku, the former 4-star prospect, can't get on the court. So you have a bunch of dudes not in their true positions. It's showing on the defensive end because they're getting cooked by mid-major folks. Like St. Joe's and Penn have really good talent, but if you're getting cooked by them, imagine what's going to happen when Marquette, UConn, even the St. John's players go up against you. Like you're not going to be able to stop them, and they don't have any answers. And I mean, if you're going to have Justin Moore play point guard, then you're going to have to settle with the fact that he's just going to put up 20 shot attempts and 2 assists, and you're just going to hope everyone else can score on their own in ISO ball. They should, like Bamba was able to score in ISO. Burton was able to score in ISO. Those guys didn't even have good point guard plays in their previous spots. So the fact that they can't even do it now, it's just maybe you can blame coaching, but again, it's weird. And Burton was a role player at Richmond before when we first started, because when the Spiders make the tournament, you had Jacob Gilliard and other guards playing well. So it's not like he's not used to being the third option, but I guess he got so comfortable just being the guy that he literally forgot what to do when he only gets 6 or 7 shot attempts and make the most of it. But I just don't understand this team, and I think they're just going to be naturally inconsistent throughout all 30 games.
Yeah, I don't think it's a Neptune, like maybe broader Neptune's not the guy, and that's a problem. But I don't think it's like a Neptune's mismanaging the team now that the season's here problem, which some people have hinted at. I think it's more just like this is a roster problem. This roster has limitations, and it's going to be tough for him to figure out on the fly. Also, like, I get Villanova fans are probably going to push back on this, be like, guys, we just won the battle for Atlantis. This was a bad game, but this is a good team. I would push back pretty harshly on the performance of the battle for Atlantis by just throwing this out there. I think that entire field stunk. North Carolina was obviously very good. That was obviously a great win. Villanova deserves all the credit in the world for winning that game in overtime. Also, the North Carolina team they beat in that game was a little bit different than the team that Hubert's been forced into playing, because Cadeau only played 17 minutes off the bench in that game. And I think he's one of the things that makes them special. And he had foul trouble in that game. To me, the other wins, like, yeah, you give them credit, but we don't know how good Memphis is. And Texas Tech's not that good, even though they're a great defense. So, yes, they deserve their stars for winning that game. This team clearly has an NCAA tournament ceiling. Like they should be an NCAA tournament team, even if they play poorly this year. But having 2 blips on the radar now is scary to me. Losing the game at Penn and now losing at home to St. Joe's, it is it's eye-opening to me. It's not just like, oh, that was a bad game. It's like, no, this team has a pretty low floor that people might not want to admit. And just last question on this. Are we too quick to dismiss St. Joseph's? I mean, this is a team that lost to Texas A&M Commerce a month ago.
Yeah, I have them number 2 in the preseason because from a talent perspective, when fully healthy, they're one of the best mid-majors in the country. The problem is the same way people feel about certain coaches is how St. Joe's fans feel about Billy Lang, because they're incredibly inconsistent, really poor defensively at times, and can struggle offensively. They barely scored 50 against Texas A&M Commerce, and that was just a situation where they were not ready. And the concern with them is when focused, they can beat anyone. They just don't have that day-to-day consistency where they can come in and beat Dayton, but they're not lose to LaSalle. So talent-wise, this isn't a surprise to anyone. The question is, can they build off of this and continue to play good ball back-to-back games? And we'll see, because I believe in the next week or so, they take on undefeated Princeton, who's been excelling so far out of the Ivy League. That's a game that St. Joe's should win, and that's going to be a really interesting game. You know, if they didn't lose to Texas A&M Commerce, you could argue that they're the best team in the A-10, but I just want to see them consistently beat teams they're supposed to beat before I can truly believe them that they can win the league. But talent-wise, they're legitimately great.
All right. Yeah, it's good to know, because when you just watch them, like I watched the Kentucky game, I watched the Villanova game, they don't feel crazily undermanned talent-wise against those teams, which I think speaks loudly to what you're saying. Like, this is a team that should have a lot of success in the A-10. I won't pretend to be a St. Joseph's expert by any means, but I definitely came away from both those games being like, wow, this team has dudes that can hang against the best of the best in the country. And at least that's how I felt after the Kentucky game. I don't think Villanova is the best of the best in the country, so I'm not surprised they hung in this game whatsoever. Also, just want to throw this out there. I did jump on St. Joseph's live at halftime to win this game. Got a nice little payout around the plus 300 range. So for any bettors out there, your boy's back. I'm feeling good. Villanova, you'll be all right. You'll make the tournament this year. Keep your head up, but also get your shit together. That was not the best performance.